Welcome everyone. I'm just going to give everyone one more minute to join, come through the lobby. So first of all, thanks everyone for joining. I know you've all got busy diaries, so giving me 45 minutes to share some thoughts and ideas is really appreciated. What I'm going to go through today is really how we move from just doing pilots on AI to doing something that makes an enterprise difference, really moving towards transformation with AI rather than just isolated cases. So I'm going to share some of our insight, and I've distilled some of this down into a kind of an interactive assessment that you'll get the link to at the end, and hopefully you'll find that beneficial and useful. There's some good insight in that at the end. So just first introductions for those who don't know me. I'm Mark Simpson. I'm director at GW. I'm now fully focused on helping us and our clients adopt AI and innovation strategy in general. So it's quite exciting times, a lot of change going on, and we're really embracing that at the moment, us and our clients. So exciting times. Now, this is kind of our mission, really, for helping our clients. We want to really stop our clients wasting time and budget on technology that isn't delivering at the enterprise level, that is not driving competitive advantage. So we feel that there's some great technology around there, but a lot of people are implemented it in very isolated ways or ways that is just not delivering the business advantage that it should. So I'm going to share some thoughts, some ideas, a bit of a method on this of how we can help you, make that difference. Markets will be disrupted by AI, by the wave that's coming. Do we want to ride that wave, or are we going to get sunk by it? So hopefully you'll get some tips through this as to how we can systematically do that. For those who've never come across Griffiths Waite before, or GW as we like to be known, we've been delivering enterprise technology for over 30 years now. So these are large enterprise solutions with huge amounts of integration, legacy technology, customer-facing custom solutions. So yeah, we have got that kind of pedigree of how to get large solutions into production. We've gone through a number of waves of technical disruption, the web, digital transformation, the rise in open source, mobile, and now we're reaching the frontier of AI. So we've used a lot of the experience that we've gained through projects, through successes, through those previous waves into distilling how we approach enterprise AI. We tend to have really long, trusted engagements with our clients, normally over 10 years. They really rely on us on understanding their business and us being the sort of agents of change of technology within those. Through those, we really kind of portray our values of brilliance, collaboration, ownership, and trust. And I think when you think about those four things, these are more relevant than ever with the advent of AI solutions. Now, this will be the first of a series of 3 episodes that I'm going to go through. This one is very much about how you sort of plan at the enterprise level and how you strategize and implement for transformation. Some tips of the foundations that should be in place or foundations you should put in place as you deliver your projects. In 2 weeks' time, I'm going to build on that, and we've designed this system called the Intelligence Blueprint that allows you to take ideas and opportunities and apply design patterns and a layering of human experience, applied intelligence, and getting your systems ready for AI to make sure that you've got a systematic approach to layering AI into your solutions. And then finally, I'm going to bring these two together to give you advice, and we're going to share all of our we have Figma workshops to support this, and we have agendas and slides. I'm going to share all of that to allow you to build this intelligence roadmap so that you have got a plan, a quarterly annual plan of how to actually work through your AI opportunities whilst building that transformative kind of enterprise value. So hopefully, if you like this session, you'll join in the next two. And all of this, of course, is to deliver the promise of AI, which is full automation, creativity abound, lots of times on our hands, better service to the customers, not being worried about the competition, which obviously sounds great, and if we're at this stage now, then probably, I would I'd not be going through this presentation, but I'd help you celebrate how well your businesses are running. However, we see so many stats out there. Now, I could have chosen any stat. I could even use ChatGPT probably to give me three, top current stats of how Gen AI is not being adopted correctly, or that there's barriers to this. I've looked at S&P's global market intelligence that said 46% of proof of concepts have failed before they reach production. We saw in another report, Rand was saying over 80% of AI projects fail. We could choose any, but in true kind of AI fashion, I'm going to be biased to the recent context that I've got. So I was at an AI event yesterday, an AI summit as part of Birmingham Tech Week. And no lie, three of the presentations out of probably 8 in the day led with this report and this stat, right? So feeding this into my context, of course, this is what comes out first of all. And this is an interesting one because although the headline stat, in my view, is misleading, because there was nothing in this report from MIT Nanda's report about kind of who they'd surveyed for this 95%, and what's really meant by zero returns. Are they getting some returns, but the delta of what they expected was not there. So this is just any stat that you could pick out the air really of saying really that we're not moving from isolated solutions to real kind of disruptive, real enterprise benefits. But I actually like the two exhibits that are presented here about why these pilots are failing. It all comes down to really kind of non-technology features here, a lot of these. Change management, lack of support, user experience, Probably the only one is the model output quality concerns, is probably one of the elements where people would look to IT to solve that. And then it's the worry about integrating it. The will it break? Will it adapt? Can we specifically include it in our workflows? How much context do we need to make this work from us, etc., etc. So all the headline I'm a bit skeptical of, and I wouldn't just put that up and say, yeah, this is fully backed up. I actually read the report rather than just the headline that Google came out with. But these elements I think are very, very reflective. And I think what's adding to this is the sheer explosion of tools that are out there. So OpenAI announced 6 new models and tools this month at their Dev Day 2025. Agents, kits, SDKs, updates to their models. Google, even in the last week, have done major updates with Gemini Pro 3.0. AI mode in Google Notebook LLM is now available on your mobile devices, and their integration of tools like Nano Banana into Vertex AI Studio is getting better and better. Microsoft are the same. They're constantly updating the AI services and models. Anthropic, huge investments with Claude and Comet. And that's just the top tier vendors. The next tier down of building agents and people who are building tools around this, that it is sort of mind-blowing. It's really hard to keep up on what tools are out there. And I think this is adding to the problem that people are not sorting out those non-technology elements while the technology is constantly changing, and improving through this. So we've looked at the four main pain points that we see at enterprise level that is preventing people from getting this benefit, that the promise was from this technology. The first of these is a pain point that has always really existed when we try to open up our client server applications, our on-premise applications, to the cloud, to the web, directly to our customers with self-service. And I think a lot of organizations never really solved the core problem of how can they take their legacy applications and safely, in a consistent, in a flexible way, open up that data and that functionality to outside sources, right? Now, if you're trying to build on these rickety foundations with AI solutions, the results are going to be quite painful. They're going to be even worse than when you try to do it with digital transformation. For these systems to take part in the AI flows, the data has to be of a certain level of quality. It needs to be open and it needs to be accessible, right? So this is a pain that must be sorted out if you're going to really reap the benefits of an integrated AI solution. Yeah. Now, for AI to really benefit, it needs that data in your legacy systems. It needs that experience. That's how you'll differentiate with AI. So this is one of the pains that we must tackle, rather than just expecting a project to come along and say, "Oh, go and use that data from that 30-year-old Oracle database or from the closed off SAP system that we struggle to integrate to, etc." The second pain point is the cultural resistance. So this is always present when new disruptive technology comes in. The fear of the unknown. I hear it a lot about the fear of change, but I think often it's the fear of the unknown. That people can't envisage a human AI future at work. They can't envisage of what they will, how they will still own the end outcomes to the customers. So I think that these sort of fears are very much built on not the not wanting to embrace AI and new technologies, but not really being able to see how they would fit in that flow. So we do a lot of work with organizations who one of the first stages of their AI journey is for efficiency, to save them time, and very often they will look at that, and business cases will be done on how much time saving. Well, the reality is the time they save, they're using to do the jobs they should have been doing, right? So very often there's no change to the workforce. They are just getting the jobs that they should have been doing while they were taking their meeting notes, or while they were replying to emails, or while they were putting, manually typing data into their CRM system. So, as when we look at the cultural resistance, then that there shouldn't be a resistance to be able to do the job and the outcomes that you really truly want to do in the job, what your sort of vocation is. But I think that unless organizations take this very seriously, of how you get the whole team on board, the progress for AI just won't be what is anticipated. The third one, and again, see this very, very frequently, is, and often we will call this POC theatre, or we see a lot of organisations who, when they structure proof of concepts, what they're really trying to do is just learn, and they are just trying to gain experience, rather than actually really testing that concept and seeing whether it's viable, seeing whether it's feasible with the applications and the flows. So, there's a huge recommendation from us to really think about structuring your proof of concepts and your pilots with the end goals, in mind, with the outcomes in production in mind. Now, when you do that, you need to involve security earlier, you need to involve operations earlier, you need the business case and the business to understand what the benefits will be. Otherwise, your POCs will not be connected, and there will be a big promise there, but the barrier, the gap to get in there will be huge, and that's often why a lot of POCs will actually fail. You know, we see a lot of out in the industry, not really from our approach on teams, but that will take POCs and build them sort of outside of their software delivery lifecycle. So they haven't got a view of how they will actually move all of those components to production. So then they're scrambling about when the POC, you know, seem to be a success with the business to say, how do we actually move this through? How do we fully test this? How do we, you know, fully secure this? How do we move it between the environments? You know, how do we make sure we can update the models and plug in new models as they become available? A lot of that is not considered, and they're in this panic now that they've got a concept that was accepted, but is way away from having a path to production. And the final pain point that I'm going to introduce here is the business impact gap. Now again, this has always been there from my 30 years in IT. We've always been talking about how we can bring the business IT alignment back, back in place or closer together, right? So there's, a big sort of desire of what the business want from an outcomes, and maybe a misunderstanding of how difficult it is with enterprise solutions to deliver that. There is also, from the IT side, a view of what technology can help, and then trying to find the business problem to implement that technology rather than starting with the problem. I think though why this is on the slide is I think this is a bigger challenge than ever with AI, because everyone in the business has read about AI, has seen the fears of their market being disrupted, seen the opportunities of what can happen if the majority of their time is based on outcomes, not just admin, seeing the huge benefit of how they can reimagine their products. So there's a real demand on IT now to be able to implement these solutions. CIOs and CTOs are under huge pressure to deliver value with AI. So, whether the gap is getting bigger or the need to bring them together more is higher. I think this is as prevalent as ever. So before I move on, I just want to make this a little more interactive. So I've got my colleague Tom here, who you can see on the screen, and he's really willing for you to type in any questions as we go through, and he'll have a look at them. He'll see which are the most relevant. Upvote any if if you want to on that, and ask me any questions as we go through, and Tom will present those rather than me having to keep an eye on the Q&A. But what I'd also like to do is I'm just going to pop up a poll to see, firstly, which of these is your organization experiencing? Do these resonate with you? Are these the sort of challenges that you're seeing with AI? So please, I'm keen for everyone to get on and click one or two of these and press submit. And then please also just in the Q&A or the chat, just type in any other questions. So if there's any that I've really missed that is top priority for you, please share those with us. See if there's any questions so far. Talking about the proliferation of tools, it's really interesting to see how many note takers come into the meetings as well, which we're finding really good and really productive. But the interesting thing is it's not all just Teams ones, because we're in Teams. We've got Read, we've got Fixer in here, we've got a few others. So I think that kind of shows how much proliferation of tools there are. I think I have to submit, don't I, to be able to show the results. So I'll put mine in. Okay, interesting. So yeah, I think it's fairly mixed. So I think that sort of shows that we're not wrestling with just one problem, like trying to convince the whole team of what the impact of AI will be. It is really split. This is a composite problem of multiple kind of issues coming together from both technology, and the IT side. Um, okay. Right. Any questions, Tom?
No, nothing at the moment, mate.
No. Okay. So the question is, I've told you about some of the pain points that you think, yeah, that's what we're seeing, but how do we resolve those? How do we really succeed with enterprise adoption of AI? Now, we've we've taken a lot of our learnings, when I came into the role of making sure that we have a strategy for helping our clients succeed with AI and with transformation with AI and really making an impact. We went back to what we had done in previous iterations of disruptive technology when kind of business to business integration and self-service customer portals and API solutions came in, and these elements that would open up a lot of new opportunities but would require, a number of foundations to be put in place. And we looked at those and we looked at, well, what were the common themes that made us successful with our projects? What made people in the market successful? And what were the things that the teams who were struggling, who were doing large 3-year programs of digital transformation and never really getting over the line, that were constantly reducing the scope, of programs, that were always kind of having a sort of a manual slash automated hybrid solution. What were they not doing out of those elements? And we distilled this down into 6 categories, 6 success factors that we saw were really driving the difference between enterprise success and enterprise stagnation. And with each of these, I've defined 6 habits for each of these. The things that people do, the behaviors they portray that mean that you're successful. Now, when we were trying to help people with digital transformation and service-oriented architecture and business process management, there were a number of foundations that we needed to put in place to be successful with that from a technology and a change point of view. A lot of large consultancies and large SIs were selling you a 90-day program or a 1-year program of putting the foundations in before you built and got the benefits from it. We can't do that with AI. In fact, we should never really do that with any technology delivery because the feedback loops are so slow when you're doing that. And by the time you add the value, the need has changed. So we need an approach where we can start portraying these behaviors and habits to make sure we've got the eye on the North Star, of real transformative benefit whilst delivering projects as we go along. So I've sort of changed the dialogue here rather than these are all the things that you need to be put in place from a foundation point of view, to say, no, these are the top habits that you should focus on changing the way you deliver software and deliver value through AI with your business. These are the things you should do each quarter whilst you're delivering projects. So you and as an organization can look at the areas where you need more success or you need maturing or is particularly relevant for the solutions you're delivering. You can look at those and pick maybe 4 to 6 of these habits and say, we're going to do that in the next project, and then iterate round and continually improve. And you'll look back in 12 months' time and say, we've totally changed, the way we deliver AI and the value of AI has totally changed through these projects. So these are the 6 categories and factors that I'm asking you to build the habits with. The first, people, which is all about wide as well as trusted adoption. Everyone in business and IT, even your customers, should understand why you're doing AI and why it will make an impact. Then the strategy, we need to have a strategy in place. Now, the most important of this, I think, for me, is allowing people to envisage the future. How will this look if everyone gets behind these AI transformation programs and projects? What will it look like? What will the outcomes be to the business and to people personally? The next one then is products. So before we get into just using the tools and seeing where an agent can help us and building an agent and then working out what it can do for us, get back to designing the products first of all, understand what the experience will be like of using that agent, what outcomes are going to best drive your business forward, what outcomes are going to remove your pain points, what outcomes are going to open up new opportunities, and how will that blend with your human processes and your human journeys. Then look at your IT systems and data and services and APIs as assets. Make sure they can be used in these AI solutions. An agent really will only be as good as the context, the APIs that it can use, the other agents it can draw on, and the data that it's using. That'll be the difference between a good technology POC and a really business outcome focused agent that will drive value in production. We think you need to relook at how you deliver software. With AI solutions and with the rapid changing of models and services, velocity's got to be absolutely key here. You've got to build and integrate at pace. You've got to get things into production, see how they're working, and be able to change those in a fast way. Now, over the last 10 years, we've put huge investment into really tuning our SDLC and making sure that it can evolve and be measured, as we deliver software. We've got a great engineering team who are, very, very fast at delivering quality software. So we've distilled some of the habits from that and some of the things we do, and there's some of the things that we're even improving on as we speak and reviewing. We've distilled that into the sort of delivery habits. And then the final one, but this is a circular thing, so it shouldn't be looked at as the final thing. It should be looked at one of the first class 6 success factors is operations. How are you going to run this in production? How are you going to scale it? How are you going to pull back on certain functionality if there's a vulnerability within it, right? So these 6 together are the things that you should drive habits with, you should change as you are going through the projects that you're delivering. And very often, if you're weak in one of these, very often it's because the previous one was not in place or was not being successful. So if you're finding your delivery is hampered, and you're finding difficulties and blockers and lots of unwanted dependencies, well, maybe the assets aren't in a fit state for being used in that solution, or maybe the products wasn't designed in a way that was pragmatic to meet the delivery constraints that we've got. If the people are not feeling it's trusted and not seeing what the vision is, then maybe let's get things into production. Let's run it. Let's give them confidence, that this can work for their organization, for their area of the organization. So these are interrelated, and very often we might look at the previous one or one downstream to solve problems in the current one. So for each of these, distill these down into 3 key elements from that, and then like I said, there's a number of habits for each of these. So for people, it starts with the leadership. We want business sponsors on board that allow us to define that North Star of how AI will help the organization. You need backing from a senior level to say we are committed to find solutions to some of these the pain points in adopting AI, and opportunities. We're going to back those, and we're going to, not be disrupted in the market. We're going to be at the forefront of what the market's doing. To enable people to do that, they need to understand, they need to be literate in AI. And I don't mean just knowing how to prompt and how to be typing things into ChatGPT. They need to understand the concepts. They need to understand the difference between a model and an application like ChatGPT that's using the model. They need to understand the points that we could put guardrails in, and they really need to understand why there is such a shift now, as things like the transformer model has introduced for us, the ability to look at context and make decisions based not on just the inputs and the outputs, but the whole context around that. Why that is different from traditional machine learning, why this has really made the current wave of AI a lot more humanized, a lot more language focused. So we run a really good sort of training course for the business side of the teams to really understand those concepts, what's different now, and what are the strengths of Gen AI. And then ultimately, if people are going to, back up their words with actions, there needs to be trust there. The organization need to understand that AI will be used transparently, with ethics, with the right ethics in place, with traceability. They know that by getting the evidence in of what we are building into this and getting things into production. Next is strategy. So I see a lot of AI strategies that tell you what you shouldn't be doing, that are really kind of policies, right? That are on the responsible side of things, but don't really give the vision and the roadmap. See a lot of strategies that are not really enabling the delivery teams and the product ownership, that are just saying what the end goal should be. So to me, the strategy should give that vision. This is how the organization should look once it is, AI enabled. It should help with a broad roadmap of how we're going to get there, the things that need to be put in place around the product delivery to do that, and then give the guidelines to do this responsibly, right? And that doesn't have to be no, no, no to everything. It needs to be how you can implement that policy to be able to support you knowing that you can scale this out because you've approached it from a responsible policy perspective. Then there's product. We should always start at the value. There's a lot of IT projects that just start with requirements that just say this is what we've been asked to build, rather than refocusing that on the value. These are the outcomes to the business and to the business's customers or the citizens that are using the software. So, if we're going to really reap the benefits of AI, we want to make sure those components are tied directly to driving that value up and are not there because there's a nice shiny tool that will be nice to blog about, within this solution. It's got to be value based. The other element to really get adoption is to look at the human experience, how the AI will flow within those journeys and those processes, how it will be seamless. So we rolled out for one of our major clients an AI solution earlier this month, and the press releases and the kind of promotion of that was all about the benefit to the end users, to the customers, and it talked about how things were automated, how the flows really fitted in with how the customers wanted that to work. It was all underpinned by AI services, AI models to preempt data, to fill things in for people, to change the paths, to be more automated. But it didn't need to shout about the AI. It was the outcomes, it was the experience that it was shouting about. And then the final element for a good product is to make sure it's integrated, to make sure it's not standalone, there's not those friction points. We always traditionally, when we did business process management, always looked at things like service blueprints to understand the touch points and the handoffs between the human side of the process and the systems, and getting clear integration points. These AI components are no different there. Then moving on to assets. These assets should be accessible, but by this I mean you should be able to call them from, some AI agents or some open source piece of code that's going to integrate to the models. So we've got to surface these assets in the way that is easy to consume. So we'll very often build a new schema for a consumption model for a piece of data to make sure the experience in consuming that by the delivery team who's building the AI is as simple as possible and is as tailored for that solution. We think a lot of APIs, there might be a lot of APIs out there that are bloated. There might be more single purpose APIs that make it much easier for agents to call them for specific outcomes. We think technical debt is rearing its head again. The amount of AI solutions that I have heard about failing because it's building on rickety kind of old, technical debtor driven solutions that are just ending up blocking it when it gets into production and the results are not what you need. So you've got to have a strategy to tidy up your data, to make sure your APIs are structured and written in the same way so that your services can scale with the demand that AI might put on it. And then finally, security, making sure these solutions are secure, making sure security is baked in. We did a sort of an AI opportunity workshop recently where we were looking at the opportunities to improve the flow based on bringing in some of the strengths of AI. And we had the security team within that straight away because we want the security to be layered in at the design stage, not as an afterthought. So when we're building, maintaining, and appreciating these assets, we need to think about how we can constantly keep them secure. Then the fifth one is delivery. You really need to rethink your SDLC and how you are driving more of an experimentation approach to driving solutions out. If someone is taking a very waterfall approach to delivering AI and designing it and building it and then rolling out and testing it, I guarantee there'll be instances where the results are not what you expected. So you better be pretty quick about fixing that. Whereas the better approach is to have a product team who are looking at how they can include AI into the solution, can pivot if the results aren't right. There'll be certain tools that are great at certain jobs, less good at certain other jobs. As you're delivering, even within a quarter, a new version of a model might come out that you want to plug in and try. You might move things from commodity services, like we use a lot of services on Azure, on Azure AI services, which are great at one thing. When you're developing, you might think, well, it can do this second thing as well, but maybe you're better off with an open source model for that second thing. You can try these out, you can test it as you're going along. So you need to have sort of a very flexible delivery model with delivering AI that has these three V's at the heart of it: velocity, constantly checking viability, and having visibility of where you are in that software delivery life cycle. What is working, what's not, what has been tested, what's not. Automated acceptance testing is still required on AI solutions. You can't just say, well, it's non-deterministic, so we'll see what the users think of that. You need some degree of making sure the visibility of what it's doing is absolutely clear. And then the final one, and again, maybe I want to rethink where I put this in the six because I don't want it left till last, but it's putting the operations in place, putting the platforms in place and the processes in place so that the team can experiment with AI, they can try things, they can have an environment to train a model to see the results of that, see how deterministic they can make it before they're moving it into the test and the staging and the production environment. So getting your method for evaluating the models and the agents that you're building within your solutions and being able to train those and constantly kind of reevaluate, are they working how you want that in place as part of the process. It needs to be scalable as well. The more and more we automate with these, the more you would be hoping they scale up their usage, and and it can get very processor heavy fairly fast. So there's nothing worse than rolling out a POC and a pilot and it being hugely successful, and then saying, well, we've got to wait 6 months till the next tranche of customers come on board because we're not on a architecture here that will scale. And finally, it's something that I refer to as target operating model. Our clients often just refer it to Tom, not the Tom who's looking at the questions, but target operating model. Now, this is how you will support these solutions in production. So if you've got a conversational UI that's giving people advice, and they click the help button and say, "I'm not sure why it's giving me this advice," that's a different support model than your traditional just put it to first line support who'll look at a run book and see what's happening. So you've got to slightly rethink what your target operating model of this would be, and that will include many different parties than just IT. It will include legal, it will include the business, it will include probably the executives as well on that, to see how you're getting the value out of this. So my kind of proposition is that if we look at those 6 elements and build habits within those, then we'll go to a place where we're getting more enterprise impact with AI. It will be a strategic enabler. It will be differentiating in your market, so that rather than you being disruptive, you will be differentiated. There'll be trust, and we'll be moving faster. Okay. So I just wanted to do one more poll while we look for any questions. Now I've got one more slide for the call to action.
We
But
have got a question mark if you want to take
yeah,
that now.
yeah, I'll take that as we're doing the poll. So I'll just launch the poll. What I want to ask here is, out of what I've just talked about there, what you're going to take action on next? Which of those 6 is most pressing to you? So yeah, and while I'm doing that, I'll answer the question, Tom.
Cool. So yeah, question coming in from Russell. So in 2 parts. So I'll give you the first bit. Given your first slide, which questions the ROI opportunity, how do you think more junior members of staff can convince senior leaders to invest in AI?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, the senior leaders are probably excited, but also slightly fearful of AI, right? They know it's coming. They know they need a strategy for that. So I think there's more chance than probably ever before for junior members of staff to help articulate that vision, to help answer the questions around the fear. So, I think that the first thing that should happen is organizations should have, should listen to all of the voices, throughout the organization with AI. It is a technology and a cultural change that cuts across everything. So if a junior developer can say, well, this is what I can do, this is why vibe coding will help accelerate our deliveries, not because the business can suddenly prompt an application, but we're using a tool like Vercel V0, which allows us to get at the code, allows you to show you very quickly, and allows us then to have the means to be able to take that code and extend it off. All of these things that maybe a more junior member of staff is experimenting with, suddenly those experiments can be turned tied to the value of the business.
Yeah. Conscious of time, no, we're into our last minute. So the second part of the question, then I know that there's an assessment that you want to reference. Is there external funding opportunities, i.e. low interest loans or government grants to encourage businesses to invest in AI?
Yeah, so interesting. We were at Birmingham Tech Week. There was a talk from the West Midlands Combined Authority about how certainly in this region, and I think it's similar elsewhere, that there is funding to help with innovation. Now, I think that there's always been a challenge between getting funding that just directly contributes to your performance as a business, and getting funding that is really about research and innovation and is bringing jobs and advancements to the region. So I think if people are going for funding, you've got to really kind of pitch how this will help others, how it will innovate, how it will actually be, contributing to the rest of the industry, and obviously different regions have different funding, models, and there's different R&D tax credit kind of initiatives that you can do within this. Yeah.
Perfect.
Now, Tom, on the poll, interestingly, strategy and people came out top, which we see a lot. It might be partly the audience that we have product people and delivery people and engineers within the audience, but I think it is quite telling that, strategy people feel probably that the AI strategy is just a book on the shelf rather than a living, breathing document.
Completely.
So what I'd ask us to do now is we've actually built an assessment across these 6 factors, and you go through just a series of questions. Probably takes 5 minutes to complete, and it helps you to understand the areas that you might need to put the focus on. So it'll be interesting if you've said strategy, is that where the scorecard is telling you should put the focus, or is it actually on people first of all, or on delivery? And then you'll get a bit of a score, and then within that as well, we outline 6 habits in each of these categories that you can start doing. So if you score low on strategy, there will be 6 habits within strategy that you can choose to start to portray. Now, these habits, we don't suggest you do all of them. We suggest you pick maybe 3 to 5 each quarter as you're delivering projects, and it will help raise the bar of kind of enterprise adoption of AI. So be really keen for you to do that and give me feedback on that. And then the next call to action is what we're going to do in the next session in 2 weeks is get more practical on the design patterns of how, when we've identified opportunities, we can make sure we build them in a way that is scalable, that is flexible, that is pluggable to change in the future. And I'll be introducing some of the key concepts for actually designing these AI solutions. So I'm hoping that everyone who's come here follows through these three series. There will be recordings available as well if you register for them. So please register even if you think that you're only going to watch them in the recordings. So Tom, I don't know if there are any other final questions.
No, a relatively restrained bunch, it seems. So,
Okay.
no, a few more votes on the poll. So, yeah, both people and strategy are now tying
Yeah.
at 37%. So, no, beyond that, thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody. Much appreciated. And we'll see you all in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for your time. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.